Have you ever come across the term bulkification when you are dealing with Salesforce, particularly with triggers? If it's an unfamiliar term, it comes up a lot, and this came up recently with a coworker where we were discussing it. So I thought it might be something good to put on the channel here. Do a simple explanation of it. My name is John Dillon. I work with all sorts of topics around Salesforce, specifically development, whether it's Apex or Flow. And let's just jump in. So in order to illustrate this, we're going to have a kind of a simple requirement that we want to work with. It's going to be around accounts. So if we look at the accounts, we've got this account type of prospect, and it could be several other things. But what we're going to say is, let's say our prospects come into the system and they are not active, but when an account gets changed from prospect to anything else, that we want to set them to active. We can either do this in a flow or in an Apex trigger, and because I'm illustrating bulkification, we're going to make a trigger for this. So let's fire up dev console. And what we'll do is we'll just create a trigger. New Apex trigger. And this will be on account, so we'll call it the account trigger. So, all right, so our requirement is when an account comes in and their type is not prospect, then we want to update whether they're active or not. To keep things simple, we're just going to do this on update. Same principles would apply on insert. In order to illustrate bulkification, the first attempt at this trigger, I'm going to be introducing a mistake. But it's a common one that people who are new to Apex often do. So we're going to, I'll do it the way it might seem intuitive to write the trigger, and then we'll go back and rework it to show what this bulkification is all about. So when we're working with a trigger, we're typically working with trigger.new. And trigger.new is an array, and oftentimes we can just grab the first item and assign it to an account variable. And we can then check to see any status that we have. And the active field is a pick list where the values are just yes and no. So here we have it. Very simple logic. If the account type is anything other than prospect, we're going to set the active to yes. Save this. And then we can go and test it from the UI. So what I could do is I could edit, let's say, Edge Communications. And I'll change it from a prospect to a customer direct. And when we save it, we can see active switched from no to yes. So our trigger is clearly working. And the problem with dealing with triggers and assuming that we're just dealing with one object is the following. Let's say I edit two of these, or another maybe more realistic scenario is I've used data loader to load a bunch of accounts or to update a bunch of accounts in this case. But we can do that through the UI here. So let's say we take United Oil and Gas and United Oil and Gas in Singapore, and we change them both to customer direct. So we're editing two items at once. When we save it, we can see the first one, it worked, and the second one, it did not. So that's the problem, with assuming that we're often just working with one object. And it's pretty common. A lot of times when people first start out, they write a trigger and they're just, editing the object, right here in the UI and changing things, and they save it and they're like, it works. But when we work with more than one object, we run into problems, and that's the whole point of bulkification. Now, bulkification might sound like a strange word. It certainly is. I don't know if it was invented by Salesforce, but it's the whole idea is whenever we're working with something in a trigger context, assume there's always more than one. Assume we're dealing with things in bulk. We can never assume that we're only working on something one at a time. Not in a trigger context. There are other contexts where that's fine. On a trigger.new is always a list, and we need to treat it as such. So the way we would rewrite this to bulkify it is we would say, instead of grabbing one item, this step is not necessary, but I'm going to do it just for illustration purposes. So now account, and I like my lists to be plural because we're working on more than one object. We're being very explicit. Trigger.new is an array of accounts. This is also, an array is another name for a list. And see my videos on collections to kind of talk about why those are the same. But this is a syntax I like to use. And then what we do is we loop through the list. What we'll do here is we'll loop through all of the accounts that came in. And for each in one of the loop, we store it in a single account. Now we can act on them individually because in the trigger, we're still acting on the group. So let's test this out and see if it works. All right, so now we'll grab these two prospects, the two remaining ones. And we'll change them both. So we've got University of Arizona, United Oil and Gas UK. And we can see they both got hit by it. So that's what bulkification is about. Again, always working with the concept that we're dealing with groups of things. We're always dealing with data in bulk in a trigger, never one at a time. So because of that, we'll often see, use of collections like we see here. We've got the array of accounts, and it can get more complicated than this, but this is just the bare bones how it happens. So a couple more things we can do around this that I'm going to save for another video is putting code like this directly in a trigger is not a good idea. We'll go over handler and helper patterns in another video. Another thing we should be able to do is write a unit test around this. And again, we'll do that in an upcoming video. If you're new to Apex, if some of this was a little new to you, a really great starting point to getting to know Apex is the SOQL query language, which we didn't touch in this video, but it comes up a lot and you'll see it in a lot of the other ones. You can look at my SOQL crash course, which is a free download that just gives you some resources, a couple queries you can use immediately as an admin, and kind of a gentle explanation into the world of SOQL. So feel free to grab that free resource. It's in the description of the video and at the bottom of the screen here. Also, if the concept of collections is a little new, I've got a video right here which will show you the ins and outs of collections on Salesforce. If you have any questions around bulkification, or if you've run into any issues with it, feel free to leave a comment. And if there's anything that's unclear, again, feel free to ask, and I will see you next time.